How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman. Thanks for joining me. And this particular edition of Real Talk is discussing with you what can we learn from some pretty famous, about 20 of them, famous, I hate to use the word disasters, but disasters in technology implementations. There's a lot of things out there, and it's great to focus on the good stuff, and we do. We hope there's more good stuff than bad stuff. But what we found in these 20, in quote, disasters, close quote, that we reviewed was a consistent pattern as to why there was significant either disappointment, financial failure, or outright business effects that caused significant issues within the organization and their stakeholders and customers. Was it complexity? Partially. Was it vendors not having the understanding of what actually the results were supposed to be? Yep. Was it hype? Yep. But we will look past that. We look past that, and we found a theme here that goes back to IT Data Processing 101. Why do I say that? Data processing. Processing data. Whatever you want to talk about here as IT or artificial intelligence or whatever it is, it comes down to data and process. And it turns out that if you're going to do an implementation, there's two things that you need to look at. Let's look at the first one, which a lot of organizations do, is buying a package of some kind, which is a very common thing that organizations do, a commercial off-the-shelf package. Within that package is data and process. Within your organization, there's data and process. The first thing you need to do is a, in quotes, mapping, explicit mapping, not mental mappings, but explicit mappings of your data structures and your data syntax and semantics. Let me repeat, syntax and semantics, meaning same thing with the processes. You have to know the processes and the processing that goes on. It's usually a verb with a noun modifier for processes, and map those to the vendor packages. Well, the first reaction you may have at this point is, well, I don't have that. Well, then I would suggest that you don't buy anything until you do have that in your organization, and then the vendor. And then you go to the vendor and they say, well, that's probably what they're going to say, because I doubt that, I know a lot of them do not have what I just mentioned, a process map and a data map that you can map into, so you can find out if there's 20% or 80% consistency in semantics and syntax. In summary, I was surprised, our staff was surprised, that it all came down to, once again, these two fundamental issues. The understanding of your data, the understanding of your processes explicitly represented, and the understanding of the vendor processes and vendor data so that you can do a mapping. If you're going to do custom software development, whether you do it internally or with a third party that you may work with, same thing is true. You have to physically map out your processes and your data structures so the vendor can actually mechanize that. Sounds kind of basic. It's the baseline for addressing and managing change. You want an analogy? You're building a house. You start with a physical blueprint, and that blueprint is what the contractors use to engage to build the final product. There's no difference here in technology. There is no magic. Let me repeat, there is no magic. You have to get your data and your processes, your organizational data and your organizational processes in order. We can help.
Thank you for tuning into Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.